Okay, welcome to part two. Let's go ahead and continue with this house. One of the cool things we can do in Autodesk Revit is not only look at the 2D sides of our view just by clicking on our elevations or even on our floor plans to see like what a top-down looks like, but we can also see it in 3D. So up here we have a little image of a house. This is our default 3D view. And go ahead and click it. And if you do, you're going to see a three-dimensional representation of your house. Now this is a good time to talk about controls. You'll notice that I only use this view cube in my video when organizing something to be like exactly facing me. Any other time I am not using this. I actually think that it can kind of handicap you using the software if you rely on it too much. So I kind of stay away from it unless absolutely, I need to organize my screen. So what you need to do is use the middle scroll wheel that is in your mouse, and if you click it down, you can actually move your screen while holding it down left and right. This is a translation of your entire structure in the 3D view. And this also works in the other views as well. You can also use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out just by rolling it. And the last thing is you can also use the shift. If you hold down shift on your keyboard, you can also click in the middle scroll wheel again, and you can revolve your house in the X, Y, and Z system, as you can see. And this is just going to help make your house, or help show details that would be a little harder to see in some of the other views. Now, we don't always have to be in this kind of hybrid wireframe mode, which we're in right now. We can actually change it to a true wireframe just by going down here to your visual style options, and we can switch it to wireframe, and you'll see that this is what it looks like if we could essentially see through everything. We can also go to hidden line, which is what we were at by default, meaning it doesn't show any hidden features behind solid objects. And there's some other useful ones here. You can check them out. This is shaded. If you put on a wallpaper, which we'll discuss later, it shows up nicely in this. And it also shows the details of a lot of the textures, but just basic textures. We also have consistent colors, which is kind of a more blander look, but it has a nice feel to it. And we also have realistic, which is oftentimes the mode I work in. Now, depending on your computer, it might lag in some of these. Hopefully it doesn't, but if you're running this on a low specs machine, the more things you put in your house, expect it to kind of chug a bit. And then the last one is ray trace. And ray trace is, the best way to describe it is it's kind of like a high quality render with the addition of lights. So it's kind of factoring lights. Right now we have the sun acting as a light source in our file. Additionally, we will add in artificial lights, and those will also act as a light source. And the more lights we have, the more impact it has on shadows, the more realistic you can make something look. Now, typically we don't work in ray trace mode because as you can see, I'm just turning this, and my machine's a pretty nice machine, and you can see that there is kind of some lag there. There's some choppiness, and when I let it go, it can quickly like sharpen it up. Particles can come into play, and it looks nice, but we don't quite have that there. So the mode I typically work in is wireframe, shaded, or realistic, or hidden line. I guess I work in those four depending on what I'm doing, but I stay away from this one until the end of the project when I'm trying to get some good shots. Cool. So let's go ahead and do some things. Let's talk about walls real quick. I'm going to switch back to hidden line. I'm going to go back to my floor plan, and right now we have the four walls. It's the first thing we do, and if you're just going for a traditional, this is what I want the house to look like feel, what we have right now is fine. If you click on one of the walls, you're going to notice that it is a generic 8-inch wall. Meaning that if I went to edit type, so click on that, and then I looked at the structure, this is the construction. If I looked at the structure of the wall and I click edit, you're going to notice that there's really nothing in that wall. This is just a generic 8-inch section. What that means is that I have no idea what goes in the wall. And that's not my job. Maybe it's someone else's job. All I'm going to do is provide them with 8 inches of space, and they have to get everything in the wall. They have to get the siding, they have to get the insulation, the vapor barrier, the studs. All this has to be in that wall. And if you want to do that, you are more than welcome to. Let me pull up a typical wall section. Okay, and here is a wall section. I just quickly pulled this up on Google, and we can even make our own wall sections in Revit. But you can see there's a number of things to it. We're going to have a place for air, like I said, the insulation, the vapor barrier, our interior, but there's a number of things, and we can add that if we want. If we want to be the true construction engineers of our project, we can add that. So I'm going to show you how to add it. I'm not going to most likely add all of these, but let's go ahead and actually build the structure to our wall to make it more realistic. What I'd like to do is create my own materials, but before I do this, I'm actually going to go back. So I'm going to hit cancel. And what we want to do is duplicate our wall first. Right now, I don't mess with the defaults. This is a generic 8-inch. Maybe I want to use it somewhere else in my project, so I'm not going to mess with that. Instead, I'm going to go to duplicate, and let's go ahead and call this outside wall. This is going to be one of the outside walls of our house. Interior walls are different. They have different things that need to go in them. They don't need to be as thick, and depending if they're a bearing wall or not, they might support or not support. Okay, and once we've created the outside wall, I'm going to go edit the structure, and let's go ahead and now insert a new material. So I'm going to go insert. If you want to get really technical, you can also specify the function of the wall. So we can look here and we have a substrate that's kind of like an interior material, a thermal air layers. We have the finishes, which would go on the outside of our house, and a number of other things, the membrane layer, another protective barrier in a sense. So you can actually specify these if you want and if you know how the material is classified. Now that's typically given on a material spec sheet and isn't something I'm going to go into, but you can if you'd like. Okay, and let's go ahead and give this material some thickness. So let's say I wanted to put brick on the outside of my house. Brick, let's say I'm using 3-inch brick. So I'm going to adjust this to 3, and of course I click 2. And let's go to the category type. I'm going to click on this, and it's a little hard to see on my screen, but yours might be a little better. There is a ... here, and I want you to go ahead and click on that. If you click on that, you're going to open up your materials list, and you can actually select a number of materials that are already pre-designed into Revit. Now, if you don't find the material you want here, you can go ahead and create that material, and I'm going to show you how, but typically they have a good variety of materials here. So let's just go ahead and select one. Right away I can see brick, so I'm going to go ahead and select brick. I can see the appearance of the brick, how it's going to turn out. I do apologize, mine's slightly smaller, but hopefully yours looks better. And we can even change the way this brick looks, but I'm not going to for this. But I have the brick, it looks nice. I'm going to hit OK, and now I have my 3-inch brick. Now as I'm building this, I would remember if I wanted to keep this wall 8 inches, I would have to reduce this amount. So this would now have to become 5 inches. But maybe I want to add some more. So let me actually click on this brick, and I'm going to move it up by clicking on this up button. And you might have noticed before that this says exterior side. This is the outside of my house. This says interior side, so this is the inside of the house. And bricks would make more sense to go on the outside. Hence why they're there. Okay, but let's go ahead and add some insulation as well. I'm going to insert a new material, and I'm going to move this one down into the core of my house, because if you think about the insulation, it's not on the outside or inside, it's in between. It's in the core of the wall. And I'm going to go ahead and add that material. So let's go ahead, ... or actually, let me give it some thickness. Insulation kind of goes in between the studs of your house, so I wouldn't give it too much thickness, just enough to show that it's there. So I'm going to give it 1 inch of thickness. I'm going to click here, ... and look for insulation. I can't find it, let's say, so let me type it up here and see what happens. So insulation. Okay, and we got a few things. We got some rigid insulation. That's kind of what I'm looking for here. We also have this. Oh, we can also use this type. This is a structure, wood joist, rafter layer, bat insulation. Oh, this is also, I believe, a new material, so I think this would also work pretty nicely. Let's take a look at the appearance versus the other one. I'm going to stick with the one that's been in 2015 and before. So the rigid insulation, and I'm going to hit OK. And once I've done that, I'm going to lower it to 4, and eventually this will be gone, and I will have everything else in my wall. Of course, don't forget there's other things in the wall. There are the studs, there are other materials, and I'm going to show you how to make a material in the next video. So I guess I will see you for part 3. I will see you later. Bye.